We're back in the garden, and we're back with another episode of the Weekend Recap, and we got birds above us. Hello, I'm Adrian, your host, and thank you for joining me here today. I've changed time zone, so upload times might be a bit weird. I'll try to get everything in order for you guys, so it's a relatively seamless transition. Speaking of, 2 assists from Ollie Watkins propelled Aston Villa to a 2-1 victory at home against Everton. They certainly had some making up to do considering their poor start to the season, didn't they? That saw them lose 2-0 to Bournemouth, remember? However, despite the victory, they did have a couple of injuries to deal with at the end of the match to both Diego Carlos and Matty Cash, so it was a costly victory. Gabriel Jesus, for all of his good play in that first half against Crystal Palace last week, he couldn't have a goal. This week, he more than made up for that, didn't he, against Leicester, as he scored a brace in the first 35 minutes and later set up his compatriot Gabriel Martinelli for his second goal of the season. And he also set up Granit Xhaka. My goodness. Anyone who captained him in FPL will have torched the league, man. Or if you're like me, you probably would have forgotten to pick your team, and he would have just chilled on the bench. Torched that bench instead. I am elite when it comes to FPL fumbles. Brighton, after beating Man United last weekend, they had the stern task of taking on Newcastle United. Isn't it crazy how in 2022, that isn't just dyslexia kicking in? Newcastle United is in fact probably the more difficult team to beat over Manchester United at the moment. We'll get to them later. But anyway, Potter versus Howe, round 1 ended 0-0. In fact, speaking of United, look, everything I said in the previous weekend recap is pretty much applicable this weekend as well. They look hopeless going forward, their midfield is non-existent, the backline struggles, and De Gea, oh my god, another clanger from him to add to the collection of clangers. They're absolutely stomped by Brentford on Saturday, going 4-0 behind after 35 minutes. Yes, you heard me correctly, they were 4-0 behind after a little over half an hour. And that was the final score. Also, I did a massive video on Manchester United looking at their recruitment department, which yes, that does exist, allegedly. The owners, why they continue with certain players, why they want to sign oldies, etc, etc. So check that video out if you're interested. The other Manchester club, Manchester City, played at home against Bournemouth, and they were on the preferable side of a 4-0 drubbing. No goals for Erling Haaland this time, but City looked about as strong as you would expect them to against the team that I think everyone have pegged to go back down to the championship. Hell, even their own manager and Scott Parker sounded hopeless with some of his comments prior to the season beginning. Ugh. Kevin De Bruyne and Phil Foden, they were brilliant once again. Haaland did pick up an assist on the opener. Yeah, all rosy there. Leeds United stormed to a 2-0 lead in the first 15 minutes of the second half. Rodrigo, my boy, getting the goals there. But Jesse Marsch didn't make a single substitution until the 84th minute, and that seemingly hurt his team. Kyle Walker-Peters and Joe Aribo both scored to level things for Saints. 2-2, the final. Wolves and Fulham finished 0-0. This is a side note, but I was a bit surprised to see Wolves allow Connor Cody to go to Everton this past week. However, they did bring in Gonzalo Guedes, who absolutely won't help out in defense. I guess the belief is in Nat Collins to settle things back there. Forest, the Tricky Trees, they got a huge result in their home debut as they beat West Ham 1-0. Not the strongest of starts for them in Moyes. Surely they will absolutely improve though, won't they? They've been so good the last couple seasons. Chelsea and Tottenham. Always a fun London derby to take in, man, and this one didn't fail to deliver. We had refereeing controversies aplenty, such as with Spurs' equalizer, in which Richarlison was standing in an offside position, a foul in the build-up. There was also the foul in the second equalizer in Cucurella getting his hair absolutely tugged out by Romero. So there was reasons for Chelsea to be upset, I think. Contestable calls, for sure, but as a neutral, I loved it. I also loved Conte running up to Tuchel in celebration. I loved Tuchel running down the sidelines with his spindly little legs, looking like a more athletic version of Mr. Burns, as we noted in this household. And then when Chelsea went ahead, of course, with Kane equalizing in the 96th minute, I mean, it was great fun. Best of all, the off-field antics. This moment between Conte and Tuchel after the match in which they squared up once again, it was just beautiful. Definitely reasons to be upset with the officials if you're Chelsea, as I said, that's for sure. Even Conte knows that they got absolutely battered. Spurs were pretty poor in this one, weren't they? Chelsea attackers also were pretty poor, and they must take note of the lessons that were taught to them by the defenders Kalidou Koulibaly and Reece James when it comes to finishing. Havertz and Sterling both with some glaring chances, absolutely blowing it, which is sort of par for the course when it comes to Chelsea attackers these days. All production comes from the defenders. Anyway, here are the scores from this weekend for you guys to enjoy. We will start looking at the standings maybe next week, but 2 games in, who cares? Unless, You're one of those people that wants to laugh at United right now. The Bundesliga ended 2-2 this weekend. Yes, the entire weekend ended 2-2, with a 1-1 in there as well. Okay, yeah, there were some wins this weekend as well, but they were in short supply. Let's go through this right now. Schalke vs Gladbach, 2-2. Werder vs Stuttgart, 2-2. RB Leipzig and Köln, 2-2. But hey, as soon as Werner leaves Chelsea, he scores. Took him 36 minutes and a lot of help from the keeper. Chelsea really is a cursed club when it comes to strikers, though. Isn't that a little bit crazy? However, Borussia Dortmund, despite playing a rotated squad due to injuries, and despite going 1-0 down early, they managed to get a 3-1 victory away to Freiburg, which is no small feat. And what a show it was. Freiburg had the lead all the way up until the 77th minute when Moukoko and Bino Gittens combined for the equalizer, and the youngster Moukoko later put Dortmund ahead. He has been heavily hyped for some years now, so it will be interesting watching him closely this season. Had a few tough goes last season, but under Terzic this season, I have hope for him. And Marius Wolf added one late to make it 3-1, by the way. Solid comeback from Borussia Dortmund. Speaking of solid comebacks, Hoffenheim were 2-0 down at home after 13 minutes against Bochum, and by the 23rd minute, they were equal again. What a weird match. It took 23 minutes for 4 goals to be scored in this game, 2 apiece, and it wasn't until the 88th minute that Munas Dabur put Hoffenheim ahead for the 3-2 win. The most shocking result on Saturday was no doubt Leverkusen losing to Augsburg. Leverkusen, a side that most people have finishing in the top 4, picking up their second consecutive loss to Augsburg of all teams, a side that provides, you know, a result like this now and then, but for the most part is expected to finish anywhere in the bottom 5 to 6 places. Still expect Leverkusen to pick up, however. I'm really not worried about them, but this is a bad start. 0 for 2. Union Berlin versus Mainz, the battle of teams that I have a bit of a soft spot for in the Bundesliga, ended 0-0, and thank goodness, because, you know, I'd hate to have to stop being a fence sitter when these two sides meet, you know? Happy to sit here right on the fence. And of course, Bayern took on Wolfsburg this weekend, taking on Niko Kovac's new side, and Bayern got the 2-0 win. Musiala starring once again with a brilliant goal as he was surrounded by defenders, fouled, knocked to the ground, and still managed to score. While Thomas Müller continues to thrive as he got a goal in the 43rd minute to make it 2-0. And that was it for them in this one. As we look at the scores from this whole weekend, Bayern looking strong with that +7 goal difference early on after just 2 matches. La Liga is back. It returned this weekend with Osasuna hosting Sevilla, a team who I think is trouble. Sevilla, that is. I think they're in trouble. And by that I mean, I don't think that they'll finish in the top 4. I don't think they're getting relegated, obviously, but Osasuna is the side that looked to carry on their solid trajectory from last season, and of course they managed to do so. And of course, the first goal of La Liga season was scored by Shimi Avila for Osasuna after just 9 minutes. To be fair to Sevilla, Rafa Mir managed to equalize 2 minutes later. I thought the defense and center forward positions would be the hardest hit for them, so if Rafa Mir could continue banging them in, then that's at least one worry erased. But in the 74th minute, Aymar Oroz converted a penalty for a 2-1 win over Sevilla on the opening day. Celta Vigo and Espanyol heard about all the fun German clubs were having getting 2-2 results, so they said, you know what, they wanted to get in on that action as well. And is it a Celta Vigo game if Iago Aspas doesn't score? That's something football conspiracy theories would probably tweet. But yeah, Celta would be disappointed with this 2-2, even though that scoreline was very much in style this weekend and they are a part of the in crowd. But they blew a 2-0 lead, and they conceded the second goal in the 98th minute. A Joselu penalty gave Espanyol the drama, my friend. 2 things I want to stress about Villarreal versus Real Valladolid. First of all, great to see King Unai get a big W to start the season off. 3 goals in the second half, saved them after Rulli was doing exactly that for Villarreal, saving everything. Great performance from the keeper, if a bit worrying at times from Villarreal. Barcelona's new look side made their big debut at the Spotify Camp Nou, which sounds really shitty, but anyway. Barcelona were held by Rayo Vallecano, but not for want of trying. Lewandowski scored a cold chip over the keeper, but it was called back for offside. No goals for Barca, plenty of strikes, just frustration, especially when Lewandowski was hauled down in the box directly in front of the referee, but nothing was given. Real Sociedad started their season away in the beautiful port city of Cadiz, and wouldn't you know it, after all that talking in my preview about how excited I was to see him sign for Sociedad, Take Kubo managed to score just 24 minutes into his debut. Great ball forward, all alone. He controlled it well with one foot and volleyed it past the keeper with the other. That was the only goal in that match. 1-0 win for Real Sociedad. La Real. Almeria, the champions of the Segunda División, took on the champions of La Liga and Real Madrid, and they started so well. They went ahead early, only for Real to claw them back as the match wore on. David Alaba strolled onto the pitch and scored a goal with basically his first touch of the game, I believe. It took no time, and that was the winner. What a player he is, and to get him for free? Decent start to La Liga overall. Nothing crazy just yet. They're working themselves up to it like any other good league would, you know? Great to have Serie A back as well. All the leagues are back. For me, the most entertaining league last season, and it's all shaping up to be another very, very fun season. One of the most fun things, just how open the title race is. You could make a case for 2 to 3 winners this season. And I will have my preview and predictions out for you early this week, by the way. And then 5 through 7 is so strong as well. There are plenty of goals as they have well and truly shaken that boring defensive Italy reputation they've had in the past. Seriously, if you haven't watched Serie A in a few years now is a good time to get into it. This sounds like an ad. I promise you it's not. I just like Serie A. Anyway, Milan, the defending champions, took on Udinese, and they fell behind just 2 minutes in as Deulofeu set up Beckham. Deulofeu is such an interesting player, capable of so much more, but chilling at teams like Watford and Udinese. No, offense. Took me a while to think of that. No offense to those clubs. From there, Milan came storming back, won and converted a penalty before Ante Rebic got his first of 2 goals on the day to put Milan ahead. Udinese, who were tricky last season at times, then pulled Milan back again deep into the first half, but a goal from Brahim Diaz on the other side of the half before he set up Rebic once again was enough for Milan, who looked decent. Charles de Catalara made his debut off the bench, and as expected, he looked really nice. Really excited to see him in the side. He had looked so promising for Club Brugge the past couple of seasons in the Champions League and the random matches I saw in the Belgian league. It took Lukaku just 90 seconds to score in Serie A again as Inter went up against newly promoted Lecce. Not the sternest of oppositions, but Inter managed to make it look far more difficult than it needed to be. After Lecce equalized after 48 minutes, it took a late winner from Denzel Dumfries to get it over the line for Inter. Martinez playing setup man, 2-1 Inter. They win. Fiorentina playing at home to newly promoted Cremonese, and they made an absolute mess of this. They absolutely made it look harder than it needed to be, allowing the new guys to come back twice to make it 2-2. And after a flurry of frustrating chances while Fiorentina were up a man, they finally got the winner in the 95th minute when the ball was bundled over the line. Andre Radu once again. I mean, this man has some high-profile blunders in him, doesn't he? Ay. Terrible for Cremonese. That would have been a massive point for them. Lazio got a win on their opening day as they and Bologna decided that they should just play with 10 men each in the second half. Maximiano was sent off for Lazio after just 6 minutes, while Adama Sumaro got 2 yellows in 8 minutes to close out the first half to put Bologna down to 10 as well. Even Steven in the second half. And it was former Man United target Marko Arnautovic who gave Bologna the lead from the penalty spot, but Lazio really pushed for the goal in the second half, and De Silvestri own goal brought them level, and SMS linking with Immobile for the first time this season, first of many I'm sure, put Lazio back ahead 2-1. They get the win there. Scary for Lazio towards the end, but they held on. Roma looked quite good up against Salernitana, as you would expect. That front three of Dybala, Zaniolo, and Abraham looks like they will cause a ton of issues this season. And if it weren't for some better finishing, Roma would have destroyed Salernitana by more than just the 1-0 scoreline they managed. The promising thing is that they are having players arrive in those areas already, you know? The finishing can always be improved upon, and they will capitalize on those opportunities in other matches. So here are all of the scores from the first weekend of football in Serie A. Missing a few notable teams though, aren't we? Yes, Juventus plays today. And that's it from me here today. Episode 2 of the weekend recap is in the books, and we will have more content coming to you guys throughout this week. Look out for our Serie A preview as well as other videos. Sound good? Be well, guys. Talk to you soon.